Good afternoon, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Thank you for joining the ATA program today for our CLC Connection for Research. My name is Adriel Ayala. I will serve as your ATA peer mentor and ATA moderator for today's event. We'll be diving into a great conversation with our honored guest, Dr. Krysti Turnquest, whom I will introduce momentarily about their career, education, and transition into the workforce. Before we get started, I wanted to cover some housekeeping items. This is an opportunity for you to engage and ask our guests many questions. To do so, please utilize the chat box for questions and commentary. We'll ask your questions out loud and answer them live. Additionally, this event is being recorded and made available to you at a later time to rewatch and share with your peers. So without further ado, let's get started. Dr. Krysti Turnquest, welcome back.
Hi,
Welcome back. The queen has returned.
Oh my God. No, thank you.
Oh man, how's it been?
Good.
Good?
It's been good, yeah. It's been doing a lot.
Right? No, I mean, like, especially with like such a title, if you will. Like, I mean, I get it. Like sometimes I believe that when you start like putting in these labels, if you will, like I mean, there is definitely like some sort of pressure that is placed upon you. So no, absolutely. Like yeah. So here we go. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's all good.
Yeah, no, so icebreaker questions, of course. So we'll get started right off the bat. What is your favorite word?
Favorite word. Oh no, you sent me this and I forgot.
Yeah.
My favorite word is yet.
Yet. Ooh, and why is that?
Yet, because yet means that like there's still more to come. So like even if the answer is no, maybe it's just not yet.
Not
So like
yet.
it like has like a lot of like optimism, right?
Opportunity,
Like,
right.
opportunity.
There you
That's
go.
what
Yeah,
it is,
no,
like,
I
yet.
get that. No, definitely. Yes.
Mhm.
I like
And
that.
it's a word that if you say it too many times, doesn't mean anything. Like yet.
Yeah. No, but I mean, simple but powerful. No, definitely. I mean, it's it can definitely hold a lot. So we're yet to see what's going on.
Huh.
Yeah. Another one right here. If you could have any profession other than the one that you are in right now, what would it be and why?
If I could have any profession, I think I'd be like a travel blogger.
Ooh.
Because you get to travel for free, see all kinds of places, share your opinion, which I have a million of. I don't know, and like get to like experience stuff that I think like the average everyday person doesn't get to. And so
Right.
I think I would be a travel blogger.
Travel blogger.
Yeah.
Nice. What platform would you use? Like I know like there like Blogspot was a thing for a while, but like I know like it's definitely evolved.
I'm not well versed in blog options. However, WordPress, is that an option?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean
Okay.
it's
WordPress?
a media outlet of sorts.
Yeah. But like, like Medium is a really cool like website, right? Like, it's
Okay.
like published, you can like your stuff can get in there with a whole bunch of other different topics and like kind of overlap with like I'm traveling and you do research, and like our two things both popped up on the same list because we use the same keywords, and so you get to like,
Okay.
layer in all these different kinds of like topics or like perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was like a
Medium,
really
you said?
weird, yeah, Medium.
Medium. We got that down, Erica?
That's a really weird segue that I made there, but go with
No, but still, no, for sure. I mean, it's like, yeah, no, definitely go for it. All right, so there's actually an icebreaker that I like to ask, even though it's not on our word bank, if you will. If you could have breakfast with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be with and why?
Ooh, breakfast.
Yeah, I know, different from the typical dinner, right?
Yeah, no, but I love breakfast food, so this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, I have my like immediate answer, but I feel like it's gonna be like an obvious one, so I'm trying to think of something cooler, but
Regardless, I mean,
Okay.
you have your reason why, obviously, like, I
Yeah.
mean, you, like, your heart and your mind is drawn to that, yeah.
yeah, no, so I would pick Michelle Obama.
Okay.
I just think that she is like a boss lady.
Hell yeah,
She like knows what she wants. She's accomplished, she's smart, she's funny, she's kind of like she's real and like down to earth. And I feel like she wouldn't judge me for like my breakfast attire and like,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
morning hair and all of that kind of stuff, but that like it would be like a real chill, like, how's it going? Let's just talk about the day.
Absolutely.
What we're gonna conquer.
Yes.
So
It's interesting that you mentioned Michelle Obama because that's who I would have tea with. Like, I mean, because there's different questions with that. It's like, who you'd have breakfast with, tea with, dinner with, like, so I would have tea with Michelle Obama, but then I would have dinner with Barack Obama. Like, I mean, it would be like,
No, I agree. I feel like he's more of like an evening conversation.
absolutely right. Like, I mean, you sit down with a good old fashioned and like, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
have these conversations. Yes.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Do we have any questions from our online audience?
None so far yet, but I
None
did
so
have a
far?
question myself. So I was interested, you do user experience research, right? Could you tell me what more goes into that? Like, how did you get into it?
How did I get into it? Okay. Let me see if I can like shorten this down into like a short thing. So I guess the like really basic answer of how I got into it is just that I got my PhD in May. I finished in May at the University of Houston, and it was a really research heavy degree. And when I went into it, I thought I really wanted to do education research. But then I started to explore more and look at positions once I graduated and realized that user experience is this really cool way to bring like real life stuff that you do and use every day into a research space, and think about like, how can we make this experience better? How can we serve the people that we're trying to get to buy our products or use our products? But how can we like make their lives better?
So very
And
occupational.
It's very occupational. I'm like,
Yeah.
and what does it mean to make somebody's life better? So I work in user research in healthcare.
Okay. Oh, cool. Occupational therapy. Yeah. Okay.
I work in United Healthcare, and really like there's this big question of like, how can we help people improve the quality of their lives? So really thinking about like research in a different kind of way. It's not all just numbers and statistics. It's also talking to people in real life and being like, what does it mean to be well?
Right.
Is it physically well? Is it financially well? Is it mentally well? What does it mean to be well? And how can we as a health insurance company, which most people don't like health insurance, like how can we as a health insurance company support that? And so I work with a team of designers, and they design like digital solutions, sometimes physical solutions, for how to meet those needs people. So I guess to answer your question, I got into it by accident. I was just looking around when I graduated at like what kinds of research opportunities were out there, and UX research is hot right now as a job. There's tons of UX research positions out there, and I just got very lucky in finding one in a space that I really care about, which is healthcare, or taking care of people, or people improving their lives and their quality of their lives, which I think is what like healthcare and education have in common. But yeah, so I got really lucky to be able to do that in the healthcare space. But I got into it mostly because I'm just curious. I just like to ask questions and
the essence of research, definitely. I mean, that's research right there. Ask questions, you get to explore the unknown and really try to make something like cohesive out of it. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, nice. So you did share a little bit about your educational background, so that sort of segues into our question bank. But you could just share a little bit more about your educational background, of who you are and what inspired you into this journey of research, if you will. So you mentioned, you're a curious person. Like, can we flesh that out a bit more?
So take it all the way back. Well, I'll take it back to, I graduated from high school, Klein Collins High School. Anybody's going to go there? Go Tigers.
Okay,
anyway.
there you go. Tigers in the house.
But I went to college at the University of Texas and had no idea what I really wanted to do. I didn't know. All I could really say was like, I wanted to help people. Like that was like the only thing I knew, but I had no idea what that meant. And so, yes. Exactly.
Yes.
So I floundered around a bit, but I eventually got my degree in sociology.
Okay.
And I was really interested in sociology. It was like talking about people and systems and the way that people move. And but I still, when I graduated, was like, okay, what job is there that's just like help people? So I ended up going to AmeriCorps for 2 years. And AmeriCorps is essentially like a volunteer program that is run by the government. Sorry, there's like a hair that I cannot like get. So I did AmeriCorps for 2 years, and I was working with 16 to 24-year-olds who were homeless or had been in touch with the criminal justice system, or were young parents but hadn't graduated from high school.
Okay.
I didn't have a high school degree. So I worked with them doing civic engagement. work. And what I really found through that experience was that I was really interested in the way that like the larger system, our social systems, don't support people once they've made a mistake.
Right.
And that, people are really willing to help people when you are young, or like before they want to do preventative stuff. But like once you've made a mistake, once you've been in touch with the criminal justice system, people are like, oh, well, like you made your choices, you gotta
Right.
deal with that.
Right.
But the system is not set up for people like that to succeed. And so I was really interested in children and families and how policy affects children and families and how we kind of set people up to be in this like, less than ideal situation.
Yeah, uncomfortable situations, absolutely.
So I decided to pursue my master's degree after that. And I got a joint master's degree in urban and environmental policy and planning and in child development from Tufts in Massachusetts. And so,
Okay.
so I was really interested in like child and family policy, basically. And so I was like, cool, did that, got that degree. And then once again was like, now what am I gonna do?
Now what, right? What are we gonna do?
Yeah, so I was still on this path of like, I want to help people, but I still didn't know like what that meant for a career.
Right.
So I moved back to Texas. I started working for my dad. He's a surgeon, so I started working in his office as a business manager. Totally just out of the blue, he needed somebody. I was there. So I got into healthcare that way, kind of, and got to kind of really see people struggle with how do you deal with managing healthcare? How do you deal with health insurance? Most people, 12% of the US population is health illiterate.
Right.
And
Okay.
don't understand those things, right? And it's complicated. Like it's
Mhm.
legitimately complicated, even for the smartest people in the world.
I was about to say, yes, no, definitely, even among us, educated, if you will, someone that may be literate in that sense, we're still lost. I mean, we don't exactly know how to outreach, if you will, with these resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, even people who work in health insurance, it's still complicated.
Mhm.
So I saw all of that, but was like, working in that office just wasn't for me. But I knew like all the positions that I'd worked with young people, kind of outside of this high school range, and was really just interested in getting back to that. So I came to work here at the University of Houston downtown.
Go Gators.
Go Gators. I started working as a community engagement assistant director for community engagement service lighting.
Okay.
And that really kind of tied in my previous civic engagement work and working with younger people, and just kind of married those two things really well. And through a series of really fortunate events, I became the first director for the Accelerated Transfer Academy here at ATA. Woo!
ATA represent.
Yeah. So I was here. It was here that I did my PhD while I was the director, and I realized that I needed to get a PhD for higher education, but I also knew that like I kind of had this thing in the back of my head where I was like, I'm really interested in like going deeper,
Mhm.
right? With like all these assumptions that we make about people and what works and what doesn't work. And so when I was thinking about PhD programs, I was really had that in mind. And the University of Houston has measurement, quantitative methods, and learning sciences as a program.
Okay.
And so that's what I decided to get my degree in. And it's really about going deep with like educational research. So how do people learn? How can we motivate people to do things?
Mhm.
Those were kind of my general areas, like motivation research. So did that. When I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in continuing to research. And so I applied for a bunch of UX researcher jobs and at a whole bunch of tech companies. And I was in the interview process. It was all good. But then I interviewed at, it was actually Optum, and now I'm at United Healthcare. Same company, really. So I haven't changed jobs. But when I interviewed there, it was like, all of these things kind of came together. Like my wanting to help people, having previous experience in healthcare, my desire to do research, research around motivation and how can we get people to do things. All of those things kind of just really came together really nicely.
Mhm.
And that is how I ended up where I am now.
Nice. For those of us unfamiliar with the term UX, what would that?
Ah.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. UX is user experience. It's just like a trendy term. User experience. So within the user experience realm, there's a bunch of different positions, and I'm still learning them. So forgive me. But there's UX designers, which are people who, I mean, when you go into a website and you know, are going to check out, like for Amazon, think about, right?
Okay.
There's a little cart in the top right corner. There is somebody who spends hours and hours and weeks and months toiling over what that icon should look like or where it should go.
Okay.
What happens when you drop down on the box, like on the little click down box, what's in there, how it's organized. Is it good looking, but also is it functional? Does it meet your needs? Can we get these things to be smart so that they know what kind of thing you're searching for and make sure the results are relevant?
The
People-
algorithm, right?
Yeah, but it's not just an algorithm, right? Like it's also like physical design, where it lands on the page and like what your eye is drawn to, all these different things that people just
Wow.
spend months and months going over and you like without even thinking.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that you take for granted, definitely. I mean, like there's thought, there's yes, there's idea, and there's that research that goes behind something as simple as that.
Right. And so they say like the best design is one that you don't even notice.
What do you
Right.
know?
Because
There you
it's
go.
exactly where you're supposed to, it's where you thought it would be. So you
Okay,
didn't have to put any thought into it because it shows up where you thought it was gonna show
very
up.
intuitive, yeah.
And so, I forgot his name. Oh, designers. So yeah, designers do that. There's UI, which is user interface. So that's like the actual buttons themselves and how things move around the page. There's service designers, which really think about like the experience itself, and like all the different systems that go behind every action that happens on in a digital space. Tons of stuff, but I'm a researcher, and so that's everything from like usability research, which is like, I'm trying to think of something simple, but like, I'm doing a claims redesign page. So
Okay.
medical claims, we're redesigning the page, what it looks like, and like, what things do you expect to find on a medical claims page?
Right.
Usability research is just like, this is the mock-up that we have. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Does it follow an intuitive path? These kind of things.
Mhm.
So doing research around that. So it could be anything from like usability research like that to more foundational or long tail or generative. There's lots of different words for it. Research, where we're really trying to understand people's mental models and like, why do you come to a claims page anyways?
Okay.
What is it that you're trying to do? And how can we help meet you? Maybe we can figure out a way to get you that information without you ever having to come to this page.
To meet the needs, right?
To meet your needs, right? People don't think health insurance is fun. So how can we be non-intrusive? How can we help you get in and get out really
Right.
fast? So, yeah, that's user experience, and the best way that I can explain it, right, is just thinking about your experience using any kind of web tool or it doesn't have to be a web tool, any kind of experience that you have, thinking about how you can make that better, optimize it.
Nice. I saw some activity going on the chat. Anything that we'd like to share?
Yes, we have some questions.
Wonderful. Bring
I
him
have a
in.
question from Gladys. They ask, were you able to study education and psychology at the same time?
So I'm assuming that's like a question about my PhD program. So at a lot of other institutions, it's called educational psychology, is the name of the degree that I got. So yes, so psychology, there's lots of different kinds of psychology. So I studied educational psychology. I hope that answers the question. If not, like, send a little more detail and I'm happy to keep answering that question.
Yeah, that's a combination of both. I also had a question. Do you do any like coding yourself, or is it more like you're doing more of the coordinating? Like you talk to like different like teams, like how does it how does it work? Like, do you have a team you work with, or like, I'm not sure. Could you expand further on that?
Yeah, so I don't do any coding myself. I do not do any coding. There's no expectation. And actually most UX designers don't do coding either. They can, but they don't. So I am in a design studio. So my design studio is focused on managing expenses. So that's where I'm doing most of my research, right? As in the expenses related to healthcare. So within a design studio, you've got designers, you've got researchers, you've got UI, and then there's also engineers. So they're the ones who are doing like once the design has been built and like we've got this mock-up, they're the ones who make it happen on the coding on the back end and all that stuff. There's also product owners that kind of prioritize like what things need to get released when. So yeah, like, everybody has a very specific job, so it's not like some other industries where you like kind of wear a bunch of different hats and do a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
Everybody's got like their role and you're set up in a team. Not every UX research position is like this. In some other places, especially smaller startups, you do more stuff. Lots of designers do research, but in my case, I just do research. Right.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice because if I were to code, if I needed to
No.
code, I'd be out of a job.
No, it simplifies a lot of things, no, for sure. And that's sort of an understatement, if you will, because I get it. I know, like, I mean, even though you're just in charge of one thing, it's you have to be like on top of it for sure because you're only focused on that one thing. So yeah.
Right, and you've got lots of different designers working on lots of different things, so I've got lots of research projects running all the time at one time.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for the next thing to happen. There's always research going on.
Anything else, Erica?
That was all for now. Thank you for answering my question.
Anyway,
Awesome. Moving on with our question bank right here. So you did mention the workplace and how you're responsible for one thing and how another team is responsible for another thing. With that interaction that you had, how does a day look in the office? Like, I mean, what does a typical day in the office look like for you?
well, first of all, I don't go to an office.
Ooh, okay.
So
Oh,
we all work from home. And that's in the UX world, that's pretty common. Everyone works from home. So that's the first thing.
okay.
And there's pros and cons to that, right? Like
Right.
obviously I love that I can wear sweatpants every day, which is dangerous. Wear
No,
sweatpants
for
every
real.
day. But it's a lot of meetings because when you work virtually, it's not like you can just pop over to someone's office and like chat about something.
Right.
There has to be a meeting. So I usually spend out of an 8-hour workday, I spend 4 to 5 hours in meetings.
Wow. So that's half the day already right
Yeah.
there in meetings.
Yeah, so there's a lot of meeting time. I typically try to block off my calendar for some like heads down time, so I can actually work.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of meetings. Typically, there's like meetings with my studio, then there's meetings with the designers, there's meeting with other researchers doing work in other studios. There's a lot of talk about design operations, which is like how our research operations and like how can we be more efficient at like a research intake process and organizing all the research that's going on. Lots of different stuff, putting together different presentation decks for folks, doing presentations, running research workshops. No day is necessarily the same, but they do all kind of consist of like a lot of meetings. And then for research, a lot of the research that we do, we record participants doing stuff. So like it's virtual. So they like take a test or they're like looking at a page or answering questions online and it records them.
Mhm.
And so I spend a lot of time sitting at my computer watching the playback of that, right? And coding the different things that they say and what they do and that sort of thing.
How do you keep up with all of that? Like a lot of coffee, I bet.
There's a lot of coffee involved. I mean, working from home, there's flexibility too, right? So like if I
Right.
don't have a meeting, I don't have to be at my desk, right? I can get up and do things like take care of life stuff. So sometimes it's like me on my couch, you know, at night, like watching.
Okay.
So I get to break it up in that way. And I also try to like work from a coffee shop from time to time or find some other place. So I'm
Right,
not
change the
just at
setting.
my office.
Right,
at my
right.
office,
No,
my
for
home.
sure. Understandable. Yes, definitely. Wow, well, that's good. That's interesting to know. Yeah. So moving on, what are some skills that juniors and seniors in college can develop now as they start preparing for a career in research?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think number one, getting involved in research. If you can get involved in research with a professor, awesome.
Okay, so like
That's-
shadowing them.
Shadowing them, working with them, if you can be a research assistant, that's great. No job is too small in terms of like helping out with research because really like what you're trying to get out of it is an opportunity to see how it works.
Okay.
Whether you're in academia or in healthcare or in any kind of research, there's like a research method process. And that kind of stays the same, right? The names might change, there might be some nuances to it, but that stays the same. So
Right, the essence of it, of learning, of doing that research. I mean,
Right.
definitely like,
there's
yes,
still a
obtaining the
scientific
knowledge.
method,
Yes.
right? So so like definitely getting involved, but if you can't get involved with a professor, I would also say figuring out you can really do your own research, I think. That's
Okay,
the thing. Research is really, to me, right, it comes down to being able to ask really good questions and then being able to define like what questions are going to get you to the type of answer that you want. So
okay,
if I want to know, I don't know, what's the best way to make a pizza? I need to decide, is it to go around asking a bunch of people how to make a pizza? Is it watching them do it and see how fast they can do it? Is it having people rate pizzas after they've been made? Whatever. This is a crazy example.
no, but you are doing research in that,
But that's
exactly,
research, right?
exactly.
You're making that choice about what kind of research method works. And then that impacts the kind of results that you get, right?
Exactly,
What you get
obtaining that knowledge
quantitative,
that you want specifically, yes.
right? Whether you get quantitative data, whether you get qualitative data, making those types of decisions. So there's tons of research, there's tons of nonprofits and small businesses that are looking for people to work on research for them. So that's a really good opportunity. I'm trying to think what else. If you have an opportunity now, anything that you have for classwork, make sure that you are, even if it's like a paper or whatever, practicing your presentation skills. One of the biggest things for both academic researchers or academics in general and researchers in UX fields is that researchers are notoriously terrible at communicating.
Oh,
the results of
no.
their research, right? When you start talking about research and people's eyes start to glaze over.
Wow,
So there's an art of storytelling in research, and like the best kinds of researchers are ones whose research gets used.
okay,
Doesn't mean that the thing that they were testing was successful, but it means that it told people something.
It
Right?
engaged
You
them,
learned
right.
something. There was an insight. But if they don't ever hear you or get the point, then they're not going to use it.
okay,
And so being able to have good presentation skills, being able to tell a story with data or qualitative is really, really a skill set that you should be practicing. So if you are able to condense down a paper into a couple of slides and tell a really good story about like, what was the point of your paper.
right,
If you've got quantitative data that you're doing for classwork, turn it into some pretty data visualization. And in a couple of slides, be able to talk about what that project was. That's the start of your portfolio, is being able to just talk about what you did, how you got there. So that's I think what I would say. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to take research courses in school, do that. Basic research methods is important. A lot of
and
people.
now we've got a speech class as well, right?
a speech class,
As you mentioned,
communication,
yes, absolutely,
so
like
important.
anything with communications, for sure.
So important. So
Nice. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, moving on. Describe 3 things that have been most important to you in choosing a career in research, besides the curiosity, besides the obvious, if you will, like, start to look deeper into it. What do you believe these 3 key factors really pushed you into this career?
okay, 3 things.
Yeah,
So
and it could be more, it could be less.
yeah, let me just start and we'll see how we go. Here we go. So one thing I think is feeling like what I'm doing is purpose driven.
Okay,
And so research for me, and particularly in healthcare, is purpose driven. I get to see the results of the work that I do come to fruition, and know that that's going to make an impact for our members. So that to me is really important, is feeling like what I'm doing is impactful in some way. The second thing I think in research for me is like flexibility. I have a work-life balance now that I didn't know that I was missing. And I really like being able to
right,
have that freedom to say, like, I will say research is in and of itself a creative practice. Being a researcher is creative. And so sometimes like creativity doesn't come when you're just sitting at a desk.
oh no,
You know what I
I
mean?
understand,
You
no,
need an
for sure.
opportunity to like get up and move around.
Something
and-
that really stimulates, something that really does
Right.
start to really get you thinking,
Right.
yeah.
So like when I'm like kind of mulling over what some research data means, and that's really, it's the making meaning part. That's like the really creative part. But
Mhm.
when I'm like really kind of thinking that through, I like to take my dog on a walk or like do laundry or whatever. But having that flexibility to like kind of stretch that muscle of like that creative muscle, I really appreciate that. And what else about research? I mean, I know you said not to do curiosity, but it really, but here's what I'm gonna say about it though. It's that I get to be curious in ways that other people aren't.
Okay,
So it gives me an opportunity to like ask the why question of people a lot. You know, people make a statement and I say, well, why? Well, why do you think that? Or how did you get there? And you keep asking questions and keep
Yeah.
asking questions
you dig deeper,
until you
yeah.
dig deep into this nugget of like, oh, this is really what you want to know. You don't actually want to know if somebody likes a button. You want to know
Yeah,
if-
beyond the superficial, I mean, you're
beyond the
really
superficial,
great.
what are they really looking for? And that's really cool to me to be able to like dig deep and figure out like, what do we really want to know? Because most people don't ask beyond like surface questions. And so with research, you kind of really get the freedom to be annoying and be like, what do you mean by what's their experience?
Like, it wasn't just about the button, it was about the mineral that ended up being the button.
Whatever.
Yeah, or like the wood that ended up being the button. No, it's nice. No, I definitely
Yeah.
understand that. Yes.
So I think those are my things.
Do we have any questions for our online audience, Erica?
We currently don't have any questions.
All right, no problem. Continuing here with our question bank. So we briefly talked about pretty much how the work life is and how the work life and how you have this flexibility. So continuing with that, how do you navigate the work life balance as far as like, working from home and having the opportunity to really just sort of manage that, like manage it at your own pace?
It's tricky. It's
Okay.
tricky. So I'm trying to think of what's the best way to answer that. So there's the flexibility, right, that I talked about, right? Like
Right.
sometimes like during 8 to 5, there's times when I get to do things for myself. But that also means that there's still a lot of work to do. So
Absolutely.
that means that like that night, I still got to get on my computer, right, and work. And when you work from home, it can be really difficult to
Mhm.
separate work and home stuff. Like when they start to blend together, it starts to get difficult to be like, I'm putting this down now and just being intentional about like my personal life now. So that can be kind of difficult. And I'm finding balance with that.
Okay,
I'm trying to find balance with that, but
you're still researching that.
still researching.
Yeah.
But I try my best on like at the beginning of the week, Monday, sometimes Tuesday, to make a list of things like I'm gonna get done this week.
Okay.
And just like slowly going down them and checking off and being like, okay, I checked off 3 things today. So I'm gonna put it away, move away from it. Has been one way that I've kind of tried to just be a little more intentional about like not just continuing because it's sitting there and not doing anything at home. I've got time to work on it. There will always be more work. So really,
Oh, yeah,
trying
there's
to-
always work. There's always
Always.
work. Yeah, no, I get that.
So really, I'm trying to like keep myself honest, and I'm not the best at it. I don't always succeed, but trying to be good about like separating that work life, like at a certain point, good enough. What is it? Don't let good be the enemy of, or don't let best be the enemy of good.
Right.
And so like done good enough today.
Yeah, allow yourself that grace. I mean, give yourself that grace. No, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
In your experience, what are some challenges you may have experienced or witnessed in your career field, and how did you overcome them, or said person overcome them?
So I'm still relatively new, right,
Okay.
to UX research, but I think that for me, one of the biggest challenges has been like imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
since
No. Yeah.
so like the quick recap.
Yeah, and I was
imposter
gonna say,
syndrome,
yes,
yeah,
for those that are not quite familiar with this concept, with this idea, if you will, or like what is,
Phenomenon.
yeah, this phenomenon. Thank you. Please elaborate. Imposter syndrome.
Okay, so imposter phenomenon is this feeling that you get that you haven't earned the success or the position that you're in.
Mhm.
So a lot of people feel it, a lot of transfer students feel it when they come to a 4-year institution from a 2-year institution and feel like, "Ugh, I don't know if I belong here. I don't know if I'm as smart as these other students who have been here since their freshman year. I don't know." A lot of women, it's very prevalent among women when they get into positions of administration, of feeling like they're an exception and one day someone's going to find them out. It happens a lot to minorities, that they feel like they've got to carry the mantle of every minority.
No, it's definitely you can feel the weight of the crown on you, definitely.
Right.
Yes.
So imposter syndrome is that feeling it's fake, right? But it's that you're the imposter and that someone's gonna figure you out.
That you don't feel worthy enough.
Right.
Right.
And one thing I'll note is imposter syndrome have everything to do with situation and not with you. So it's all about mind frame. You absolutely earned and deserve the place that you're in. And it's funny because I studied imposter syndrome and then still experience it all the time.
No, of
Right.
course.
Like still.
Yes.
So when I got into this position, I think like the first couple of days, they were like, wow, we're so happy to have a researcher in our studio. And like, you know so many things and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I came from education. I don't know anything about
No,
design.
and exactly. And that's why you're researching, because you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So like, no, right. Yes. Again, going back to the yes.
So yeah, so I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, they're gonna fire me in 2 weeks because they're gonna realize I don't know anything about like the stuff. And like I'm sitting in meetings and they're using all these words and I'm like,
What's going on?
what?
Yeah.
What are you saying? But then you get like moments about, so that was like a really big challenge for me, was like feeling confident enough to be like, no, I know this.
Right.
Like it may be a different word or like a different term than I'm used to using, but I know this stuff, right? I went to school, I got my PhD, I know that. And you start to get those moments of validation and it starts to click for you. Like, first of all, being really cognizant of the fact that I was experiencing imposter syndrome is helpful, right? Like when you can name it,
Recognition.
then
Right.
you
No,
can,
definitely.
like, you can address it. But also, people start to say, good job, or, like you did a great job. That was really interesting what you said the other day, or whatever. Is really like a moment of validation, like, ooh. And so I will say that lately I am valuing more and more saying to other people, like, you did a really great job. Because you never know if they're experiencing imposter syndrome.
Right. No, for sure.
And even if it's like the job that you expected them to do, and they did what they were supposed to do,
Validating that.
validating that,
acknowledging.
because they
Yeah.
may be feeling like, I'm not good enough for this. And so, yeah, I just really am cognizant of that right now because it's really been helpful to me. And I'm really lucky where I am right now in United Healthcare. They're very good at like offering plentiful praise at all times. Like when you do something, they acknowledge it. And that's been really nice.
And it's those little things. No, definitely, for sure. These nuggets of no, they really can make someone's day, and you have no idea what they may be experiencing. Again, going back to that imposter syndrome, or just like something that's going on in their daily life that has them down and has them out. And just to giving that little glimmer, giving that little spark. It's like, you know what? No, yes, I mean, yes, it really does make a difference.
Yeah,
absolutely. Anything from our online audience, Erica?
Not currently.
Not currently? All right, here we go. All right, next question. So going back to the whole, working from home and then sort of setting your schedule and still researching the balance, the how we can manage work-life balance, right? Interestingly enough, how has COVID-19 impacted that specific field of research? Of that job right there.
So even before the pandemic, a lot of UX researchers, in UX folks in general, were working from home. However, there have been some big changes for researchers because in the past, a lot of the research that we did was in person. So we would gather a group of people and have them do a focus group or a listening session or a co-design where like you're having people go through these like different activities.
Survey,
like,
right.
Not even just surveying, but like putting together a design, like you have people draw on a piece of paper, like where do they think things should go?
Okay.
Or you follow people in a diary study, you follow them through their day and like ask questions throughout their day and that sort of thing. And all of that stopped, all the in-person research stopped and everything had to be virtual. So it's all Zoom, it's all different platforms, but the research community has gotten really creative with how do we engage people still and get like real feedback from people in a virtual setting. And so even now that, most industries are back in person, the world participants for our research don't want to come in person because they're used to being at home.
Yes, no, for sure. The adaptability And the fact that, no, I mean, just you have that commodity, if you will, because
Right,
why go out and do something if you have the luxury and you have the capacity to do it at home?
but there are some challenges. to
Oh,
that
no, absolutely, yes.
because, well, not only just like challenges of like virtual anything, but also that older generation folks, or I won't even say old, that's not fair. I don't want to say older generation, right? Also, people who are not as comfortable with technology,
Mhm.
they get left out of the research then,
Wow,
right?
okay,
And so there's a real danger that we're designing a world for a digital world for folks who are already comfortable with digital stuff.
and excluding a
excluding the
completely
rest of the
different
world.
demographic, yeah.
Right, so like
Right.
when we're talking about healthcare, and in my case, and there's this big push to make everything online and make everything digital because it's more accessible, you get more up-to-date information, you can find more detail and all that kind of stuff. But what about people who live in rural places who don't have stable internet connections? Or people who don't trust the internet for their health information
Right.
or whatever? The danger is that you leave them to the side, you don't design for their needs. And so we're really thinking about like, as researchers, how do we make sure that we're not excluding their voices and being inclusive
Mhm.
of those folks? There's a talk about one day could health insurance, like your interaction with health insurance, be 100% online. Well, I don't know that that's ever going to be the case, right? There are folks who can't see a computer screen and have like screen readers, but
Right,
that can only take you so far. Folks who can't hear, folks who, for whatever reason, can't effectively or efficiently use the internet for that kind of thing.
for XYZ, right.
What are we doing for those folks and making sure that we're not just negating their experience? So I think COVID has been a blessing and a curse in that way, in terms of like, we get faster, but like efficiency at the cost of what?
Right. Right, no,
Um,
definitely. I
that's
mean,
question.
compromising for sure, definitely one thing or another. I, yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did briefly mention about, how we could shadow different professors and then trying to get involved as much as possible for specific skills that juniors and seniors can start acquiring. However, are there some professional organizations that students can get involved in right now?
So I actually don't know of like a research organization. But lots of things like any of the STEM organizations will have like arms for research. And actually, if you think about like I take that back. This is not a student organization, but like APA, American Psychological Association. It's what a lot of people cite their papers using their
Yes.
standards. Right? APA.
For those of us that are
Right.
familiar, no, yes,
Right.
APA.
Their current 7th edition. If you don't use it, use it. But that's an organization, right, for psychologists, but there's a whole arm of educational psychology, which is dedicated to research. Or not just educational psychology, but there's whole arms. There is one for educational psychology. There's other research arms, if you're interested in research in other fields. But they've got student pricing, so you can become a member of
Okay.
APA. And they have an annual conference where there's lots of opportunities to present or to learn from other folks. So they have one, AERA, which is the American Educational Research Association. I think I got that right.
APA and AERA. Okay,
Yeah,
I just
confusing
we're
names. I
typing
know,
it out.
right? So they also have strong research arms. All of those big organizations like that have student prices and student led like organizations. So I know there's a graduate student, it's almost like student government, graduate student piece in there, but they do things like networking. They allow you to get involved in research stuff. They provide grants for research.
Okay.
They can help you find, if you're interested in going to graduate school, they can help connect you with different opportunities to meet people to get in the door for graduate school and that sort of thing. So that's, I think, where I would go with that, because I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't know of any like undergraduate exclusively organizations for
Yes.
research yet. That could be a really good
You see?
opportunity to research the need for such a thing.
Right, right.
And then there you go, there's your first project.
Right, absolutely. There you go. All right, so what are some books that you would recommend for students to read to develop their professional skills? Like I know we touched base as far as maybe even taking like a speech class, communication and whatnot. But these are classes. How about like books, if you will? Like I mean, or if there's a particular book that you find that aided you or you find close to heart.
Okay, so I feel like I probably have told people about this. I don't know if any of, like my former
Or-
students are out there,
Or a
but,
refresher, if you will.
this is not really UX research related, but it's just research period related, which is a book called The Writing Workshop.
Okay,
I think it's Barbara Sarnecka is her last name. It's free online, the PDF version, or you can buy it off of Amazon for like $20. If you like me, I wanted the hard copy because I like hard copy, but also I wanted to write all in it and all that kind of stuff. But the writing workshop is great for academic writing. The book is about academic writing.
okay.
And I never would be the kind of person who would like recommend academic writing books. Like, I know that sounds really lame, I get it. But it's a really fast read and it gives really practical tips on how to write about your research and write efficiently
Okay,
about your research. And that helps you get through the process of doing research faster. Because like I said, communicating about research is just huge. And so I recommend that book to everyone, especially if you're going to go to graduate school. Get it now, get those tips early. I didn't read it until I was starting my dissertation and I was kicking myself, but I didn't have it before that because it helped me be so much more efficient. So
adding
there's
on to that real quick.
Yeah.
So what are your opinions with the Elements of Style then by Strunk and White?
Elements of Style. Oof. I remember reading that and I do not remember what I learned. So I guess that's my answer, right?
Okay.
It's like, yeah, I can't tell you a single point in that book.
The only point I remember from that book, to be honest, the difference between somebody and some body. Like, I mean, as far as like, the separation of words with that. So that's pretty much the only thing I remember from that book.
I will also say that like, as far as research, like there's different buckets of it.
Okay.
So there's academic research where something like that has a strong implication.
Yes.
Right? Like the way that you use words to talk about anything but research. Whereas in UX research, it's a lot less focused on that and more focused on like the so what question of it.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of, sorry, this is like not even a question.
No, but
I'm
yeah.
just on a roll here, but one of the things I really like about UX research is that in academic research, a lot of times you do research, you put it out there in the world, even if you communicated it beautifully, it's up to someone else then to like use it, do something with it. You hope that someone will come pick it up and use it somewhere.
Mhm.
Whereas in UX research, the point is not just like, oh, we found X, Y, and Z. That's step one. Step two is the insights. So it's now that we know X, Y, and Z, what does that mean in the real world? So if we, and this is too much detail, I know, but there's
No, it's never too much detail. No, we're reaching right now.
right? Like the
Yes.
study that we did, we asked people like, what's the most important information to you on this page? And people talked about, I want to know, it was member liability, so how much you owe,
Mhm.
coverage of services, service breakdown, and claim status. Okay, I'll tell you what this. What we learned from that, so like that was like the research, that was the outcome of the research. But what we were able to learn from that as far as insights is that people want to know how much they owe, what are they paying for, why are they paying for it, and is the status of this claim done so that I can pay it?
So this breakdown, right?
So it's all about the money. It's all about the money. And so that's an insight, right? So you go from data points to insights. So that's a really simple thing. But my point being that you get to put things into actionable use, which is helpful. Because you get to see then the results of your work. You get to see your research be put in action. Like talking to the designers, like, hey, did you know you're giving all this real estate to something else? And people, they want to know what they owe. And so, getting back to my original point about writing, was that it's also about less about writing and more about communication. I would say.
Less academic is important, I understand, yes. However, just instead of getting too technical with academic, as you mentioned, it's just pretty much trying to get that across, trying to bring that, trying to
Being able
communicate.
to see the big picture.
Yes.
Forest for the trees.
Right. So what was the book again that you mentioned?
Oh, the writing workshop.
The Writing Workshop. Awesome. Anything else? So like anything that you may find, and it may not even necessarily be it may not be the book that you would recommend them, just like a personal favorite, because I get it, like it's finding that work-life balance. Like, I mean,
Yeah. And the thing is, I think everyone has a very different research style and like what you enjoy. So I love Freakonomics. Have you read? Yeah.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
a couple of Freakonomics books. They also have podcasts. which
I
it's a
believe at the
series, it's very
moment,
good.
the adaptation is still on Netflix.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. I didn't know it was on Netflix, but I've seen it before though.
Yeah, with the green apple, like the, yeah.
yeah. And so Freakonomics, that's about research too, actually. But it's all about like connecting these like seemingly really disparate events or phenomenon
Mhm.
back to like really basic points, right? It's a really cool way to think about how research can be creative. And I think so actually I'm gonna put that on my list. I'm gonna put it under the research category
There you go.
because I think it's a really good example of the way that research can be interesting and can be used to produce insights in a way that's like not boring. Like we're not trying to bore people to death.
Mhm.
We're trying to do research to like make movement, move the needle on some issue.
Okay,
So that's where I go.
nice. I saw the window go active under the chat, Erica. Is there anything we'd like to share?
Currently we do not.
Okay, so I guess my eye is playing tricks on me.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, you saw it too,
Yeah.
right, right. Okay, so what can students research and Google to learn more about research? Like, I mean, what are some keywords or like some, like some tags or like hot topics that we can start to look into?
Yeah, so there is a plethora of YouTube videos. So UX research. If you look at it, there's a girl called Aona, Aona.
Okay.
Her channel is like Aona Talks, I believe. Anyways, she does a huge series on UX research, and it's like day in the life and the top 3 methods that she uses and all these different things. So if you're just interested in like seeing more about UX research, YouTube is fabulous because there's a ton of researchers out there right now who have YouTube channels. I think she works for Google, I believe.
Okay.
But Google, Apple, United Healthcare, all the like Fortune 10 companies have a pretty big UX research team. So UXR or UX research. If research isn't your bag, but you're interested in UX, you can look at UX design. There's plenty of like how-tos. Although I would not suggest that be like your formal introduction because a lot of them are super simplified. And I'm on a crusade right now that there's a lot of researchers who became UX researchers by accident and don't have like methodology
Okay.
behind what they're doing. And so you run the risk of like having false results, right? Like taking
Right.
like one little nugget and being like, it means that we need to like tear the company apart and start over. That's not what it means actually, because you had a sample size of 3.
Mhm.
But if you don't know like research methods type stuff, you won't be able to.
It can spiral really
It can
fast.
spiral,
Yes.
exactly. So I would definitely suggest like formal training, but if it's just something you want to check out and see like, could I be interested? Then definitely tons of YouTube stuff. There's
So definitely don't do WikiHow then.
no, I mean, like, to be honest, there's so many different like UX research methods that are really cool and like you can Google those, right?
Okay.
But like have a foundational understanding of research first and then do those things.
Okay.
So that's what I would say about that. There's a book that I just got not that long ago called like 101 oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher the name. I'm sorry. I'll send it later. It's like 101 user testing methods or some user research methods, something like that. But it's just like a really,
Do we know the author?
I do not know the author.
Okay, no problem.
I'm gonna find it. I will. But it's a really good book of just like every method gets 2 pages of like an example and how to do it. And you just get like these ideas about how you could test out certain ideas or co-create certain different
Mhm.
types of things. And you can be like building toys, right? There's UX research in building toys, not digital toys. Actual toys.
Actual, yeah.
And like part of that research is having a bunch of people come into a room and like build toys together and then try to figure out like what are the common themes, what are their common purposes around these toys, and how do we build a toy that's gonna sell. Actually.
Hey,
But yeah, anyways, I got off track. YouTube.
it's still, no, for sure, definitely. Like, I mean, just Google, YouTube, go ahead. We did get to mention the name one more time. The Aona?
Oh, Aona Talks.
Aona Talks. There you go. That's something that we can research for sure. All right. So this one's interesting right here. what are some changes to come in research that students interested in this career industry can prepare for right now? Like, I mean, what are some curveballs that one can sort of prepare for, if you will, going with that adaptability?
So I think we touched on it already, which
Yes.
is the virtual research.
Right,
world.
and how, exactly.
I don't really see us going backwards very much from that, but figuring out how do we, so if we're not going to go backwards from virtual research, how do we become more inclusive with our research? I will say that there was a research partner recently that tried to, we were looking for participants and they gave us a panel and they were like, it's representative of the United States. And then I dug into the demographics and it was 76% white. And I was like, this can't be representative. And if we design around what this group of people says, we're going to miss the mark here. And so I think it's really, when we're looking ahead, it's being more cognizant of who we're doing research with.
Okay.
And that from like all kinds of perspectives, whether it's virtual digital literacy or race and ethnicity, income, chronic health condition,
Yes.
all kinds of things, different levels of ability and mobility, all these kinds of things that because UX research kind of started out as like an informal practice, they need formal researchers to come in and like validate and really like professionalize UX research. And so I would say, looking down the road, I see fewer people entering the field just because you're creative, right? I see more people who
have a solid background.
have a solid research background who can back their data, back their research in actual methodology and research. But yeah, I think looking forward, it's less of a, let's just ask a bunch of people and see what they say. And more of a, how can we really truly get to the heart of what we're trying to do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So more of a lighter question, if you will. I mean, because I know like we're going through like these really heavy, just conceptual questions, but right, like, ooh, right. So time to decompress. How do you decompress or take care of your mental health? I mean, because you're trying to put yourself in other people's shoes that you saw. I believe that, no, for sure. I mean, as you go along the road, like, I mean, you sort of like start to lose yourself, if you will. Like, I mean, because you do need to take a step back and realize that, there's still yourself, although you're trying to understand and get into the mindset of others and how to encompass everyone. How do you decompress? How do you take a step back and really start to like take care of yourself?
So I was really cognizant of like when I was gonna move from being in the office to starting to work from home, about I needed to have some stuff outside of my house, right? That I've got to like keep accountable to, but also like helps me like interact with people. So I'm adjunct teaching this semester at the University of Houston. And it's a really great way to like stay in touch with students, to get to have conversations with all kinds of people about things that we care about. So that's been really nice. But I play sand volleyball.
Okay.
So I'm in a league.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we're in our third season in a row. We won our first season. We got second place in our last season. We're undefeated so far this season.
There you go.
But yeah, I play sand volleyball. I spend time with my family and my loved ones, and just kind of, I go to my parents' house every Sunday for dinner, like religiously.
Sunday dinners, absolutely.
Sunday dinner.
I love Sunday dinners.
I go and get that free dinner and then bring home leftovers
Yeah,
for Monday.
yes, exactly.
Doesn't matter how old you get. If mom is cooking,
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
coming.
World's greatest chef.
What other things do I do? I play the piano, I play the violin, play the guitar.
Okay.
I don't necessarily do those things like habitually. I just kind of, I can play all of them. These days I kind of like, I've got some free time. I'm gonna sit around and like try to work out this melody or whatever.
On the topic of music, what's your favorite genre?
My favorite genre? Ooh, okay. It depends. I feel like I have a genre for every mood.
Okay. Oh, okay. No, yes,
So,
definitely.
like,
It's the vibe that you're feeling that
It's a
moment.
vibe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I feel like when I'm like cleaning around the house, I love to listen to like early 2000s pop, like boy bands, and
There's the hot years. Yeah.
that's like my NSYNC is like, I can't even tell you how much I love them. I know like the ATA staff who were here when I worked here, like they'll tell you. I love NSYNC. So like that's kind of my like fun, mindless music.
Yeah.
I love 90s R&B too.
Ooh, okay.
Big fan. And also like I love Luther Vandross, like 80s R&B as well. So maybe just like R&B generally, but not as big a fan of like current R&B, which is interesting. I actually don't listen to a ton of stuff that's like on the radio on purpose.
Mhm.
Like if I was to go in and like search for music, it would
Yeah, like contemporary music, like it's not necessarily, you're right.
yeah. I mean, if it's on the radio, it's fine, but it's just not like what I would search
Something that you
for.
would actively go for.
Yeah, I love musical theater.
Oh,
So I listen
Okay.
to lots of soundtracks.
okay.
Especially if I'm gonna be like on a long drive, I like to listen to from start to finish
Mhm.
of a soundtrack so that I can like play out the whole thing in my mind as I'm like.
So what's your favorite production? Like, I mean, what's your favorite play?
I mean, it's like the classic answer now, but I truly think it's a masterpiece. Is Hamilton.
Okay.
I fell in love with as a kid Phantom of the Opera.
Mm.
That was like my initial foray into musical theater. I think in high school I got to see Wicked with the original cast.
Oh, yes.
Like my family, the original cast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Who else do I love? Love. The Lion King on Broadway is,
Oh,
or like just the stage version of Lion King is so good, and that soundtrack is also
Yes.
beautiful. What else is fun? Oh, Little Shop of Horrors is good.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And very spooky season appropriate too.
Spooky season appropriate. Fun
Yes.
fact about Little Shop of Horrors, it was on the TV while my mom was giving birth to me. And so Little Shop of Horrors is like
It's your anthem. It's definitely your anthem. Yeah.
so weird. But she always talks about it because she'll never forget it because it was on TV. So I don't know what that says about me or anything, but there's probably like a deeper meaning to that somewhere.
Is there a particular actor or actress from musical theater that you like, if you will?
Ben Platt, I think it's like so talented. I think he's so talented, and he's not like in any of my favorite musicals.
Mhm.
So Ben Platt is really good. He plays oh, I forget his name, but he was in Pitch Perfect, like
Okay.
the one who didn't make the Ned's acapella group.
Okay.
Benji,
I've
Benji,
actually yet to
Benji.
see. Actually,
You've never
I
seen
know, right? Like, no. And it's funny because like as far as like my I mean, yeah, not seeing these musical theater themed films, if you will. But my favorite actress is Bernadette Peters.
Oh, classic.
Yes, like I mean, it's just that you can't go wrong with some good like, oh man, the vocals definitely Gypsy. Oh my god.
Her very like New Jersey sounding voice.
Yes. Oh man, it's like it's sultry, but it has grit. Like I mean, like I'm not sure like if that makes sense, but it's like
We've gone deep.
right,
We've
like
really gone deep on this musical theater.
it's right, like it's. I mean, the best way to say it, I guess, would be like, yeah, no, it's velvet with like a hint of sandpaper. Like yes, like I mean, that's Bernadette Peters right there.
Awesome.
Do we have any questions from our online audience before we keep moving on with musical theater?
Yes, I did have some questions myself.
Wonderful.
So I have several questions. So I don't know if I should start one by one.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll
So-
forget if you get to the
So how do you like start a research topic? Are you like presented with an issue first, or like do you try to find an issue, or I don't know how like exactly do you just examine like material?
So this is an interesting one. So in my role, the thing is, everybody will say, we need research around this topic, or we need research on this.
Mhm.
But they don't actually, that's not a research question. Do people like this? That's not a research question. So part of my job as a researcher is to work with designers and product owners and whoever is wanting research to really get to a research question. So sometimes that's just through a lot of conversations and asking the why question. Sometimes it's me sitting in on a lot of their meetings about their product, and then proposing a bunch of research questions and saying like, do any of these resonate with you? Like, is this what you're trying to get at? So when it comes to usability testing, typically they come to me with questions about like, we need to know if this design is going in the right direction. And then I will then write a research question, right? Like, do users find this usable? Do members find this page usable? Do they find it attractive? Is it efficient? Does it encompass all the information that they need, right? Answering like really bullet point questions.
Right.
So there's that kind of thing. And then there's also, we're working on a project right now where we're trying to design for a future state. And so it's not about any one particular page or website. What we're trying to get at is, what do people want in their experience to pay for a claim? So like, say you've been through an emergency situation.
Mm-hmm.
How would you like your insurance company to talk to you about what you owe?
Okay.
Is it that they reach out to you proactively? Is it you come to them? Do they explain every detail and every charge, or do you just want to know the bottom line? What is the tone of the messaging? What is the frequency of the communication? Would you prefer to never think about health insurance and just be sent a text message like you owe $50? But
Whether it's
And-
overwhelming or underwhelming.
overwhelming or underwhelming, how can we support you in
Mhm.
making sure that you're well? Because at the end of the day, what we want you to be thinking about is like, I'm so glad I had health insurance because it helped me stay healthy, rather than I have health insurance and I gotta pay it. I gotta pay a bill because of it. So how can we understand how people look at their relationship with healthcare and seek moments of opportunity in that? So that doesn't have like a strict research question. That fell to me to develop research questions around this kind of larger idea that people are into and thinking about what the future could be like of
Okay.
health insurance. So yeah, it happens both ways, I guess, that people give me research questions, but also sometimes they just give me an idea about like what they would like to think about in the future and what kind of information can I get them that will help them get closer to this idea that they've got.
Okay. That kind of answered my other question. What is the life cycle of a research topic a little bit? But I had another question. Like, what are the different methods to like researching? Like, how do you collect data? Like, is it just like what is it? Just like case studies, or do you like research like? I'm not really sure specifically. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Say the first part of your question one more time. I apologize. I don't know why.
Okay. I asked what different methods are there to like researching? Do you just research like text subjects, or like do you observe people? Like there's different methods to like researching. So which one do you think you apply the most to like your everyday?
Okay, so yes, I'm glad you said that. All of the above we do all of those things, right? Whether it's observing people, whether it's asking them to complete a task, whether it's surveying them, having them verbally answer a bunch of questions that we record, all kinds of things. I would say probably the things that we do the most frequently, and mostly because they're fast. When you work in industry and research, like most researchers would love months and months to get to do your research
Right.
project. And sometimes it takes that, right? When you're dealing with real people to like schedule stuff, but they want answers like yesterday
Immediately,
about so they can
yes.
move on. So we do a lot of things like A/B testing, card sorting, tree tests, things that people can do virtually and asynchronously. And we use a platform called usertesting.com. It pays people incentives. So as a student, if you're ever looking for a few extra dollars,
Oh,
things like usertesting.com.
okay. Usertesting.com.
User Zoom, D-Scout, MUIQ, which is measuring you. You can sign up and they'll pay you an incentive to take these like short little quizzes.
We're gonna need to. We're gonna need to write down this checklist.
I'll go back to that list in a minute. But it's like $5 a test, and it depends on like how much
Hey,
how
every
much is
little
involved.
bit counts. You know, those $5, like, I mean, that can get you like a sandwich from Chick-fil-A.
Right, I chuckle sometimes because people will do it and it records your screen while you're doing it, 'cause, like your experience, like navigating a web page or something,
Okay.
right? And I'll look at people's tabs across the top and they'll have user testing, users and DSCAT, all these things. And they're like, oh, you're a professional test taker. You're like in this for real. But anyways, so we use it. So we send out like a screener that's basically got these questions like, do you have health insurance? Do you use our health insurance? Do you have a deductible? Blah, blah. Different questions to get the population that we want. They send that out to all kinds of people. People do that. And then we say, okay, we need 100 people. And then they're able to take the test on their own time. It records their screen. Sometimes we tell it to record their faces so that they can talk to us, but they can talk while they're navigating the screen and like give us their impressions and blah, blah, blah. So it's not just like, I like A over B. It's like, I like A because look at this green space over here, the white space over here. I really like that. So anyways, we do a lot of things that we can do asynchronously and virtually on a frequent basis. Observation gets a little more tricky, although we do it sometimes, but because we work in healthcare, we have to be pretty careful about like violating people's like HIPAA violations, right? Violating their privacy. We can get around that in some cases, but you have to have a really good reason to do it. Diary studies are my new favorite thing. I think they're so cool.
Ooh, what are diary studies?
Diary studies, so you can get paid to do these too.
Oh, okay, you
on-
see.
on DScout, DSCOUT.com. But they're called missions. But basically you'll be sent something that says like, record a 30-second video every time that you're feeling, I don't know, lonely over the next 2 weeks. And so it's like an app. You open the app on your phone and you just like talk for 30 seconds about like, yeah, I'm feeling lonely and this just happened or whatever. So it's a longitudinal study where you get to like be with people in real time. So I want to do one where like every time that they've got to think about expenses, I want them over the next 2 weeks, like every time that you're thinking about expenses, like open your GSCOUT app and tell me what you're thinking about.
I'm thinking about expenses right now. That's why I'm asking these questions. Like, okay, $5 here and there, like it adds up.
But you want to know like in the moment, because it's really hard a lot of times, like if I ask you about an emotion you had 2 weeks ago, if it wasn't like a strong emotion, you're probably not really going to remember it in the same kind of way as if I'm able to get that information from you when
Immediately.
it's happening.
Right, just open the app and there you go. Like, I mean, document that. Yes.
It's also notorious. Users are notoriously bad at predicting what they will do, or even telling you what they did do, giving you details. So, like, or what they did feel. So, a lot of people that's called confirmation bias, right? But like, what I think that you want to hear as the researcher, like when you ask me a question about like, how do you manage your bills? I'm going to tell you what the responsible answer is. I'm going to tell you what I think what I should do.
Right.
Knowing in real life, I'm lazy and I'm not going to do it and blah, blah. But that's not helpful to the researcher if you're not able to be honest.
You're not being genuine.
And
right.
you can genuinely think that that's what you would do
at that moment.
In that moment when I'm sitting here in this chair talking to you,
Yeah.
but not in real life. So anyways, to answer your question, we do a lot of, sorry, bring it to land the plane. We do a lot of things that we can do asynchronously and quickly. We can get those things done in 24 hours for 100 people. But for some of the more foundational research, we do things like we do a lot of interviewing as well. So a lot of interviewing, a lot of co-creation, which is basically like we're building something, whether it's a web page or an actual object or something with a member and saying like, what goes here, what goes there, if we're telling a story, what happens next in the story, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you so much. I had one last question. Well, me personally, I'm studying computer science and I have a strong interest in like user interface and user experience. And I'm actually just got an internship through like C-School doing that. So
nice. Congratulations, Erica.
But like I was wondering like how would I be able to like transfer those skills into like UX research? Like how would I be able to like apply it to those jobs like once I graduate? Because I'm graduating soon and I'm like really interested like in doing that. That's why I'm here today. But like, what would like be the best way, like the entry point for me?
So entry point from getting from UI to UX research?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, like how would I be able to like transfer, or like what would be like, how can I apply the skills I've learned now like to doing that specifically?
The good news is that UX, UI are like hot jobs right now. So you'll have no problem finding a position. I think the better question is like finding one that you want, that fits with you. So you'll be able to find a position in lots of entry level positions where people will be able to mentor you on the job. Because what I will say is that with like UI and UX design, those tend to be pretty, a lot of it is very specific to that company or that field. But UI is UI, right? So if you're in computer science, you'll be able to pick it up really quickly. I would say definitely take some time looking at free stuff. NNG, Nielsen, oh gosh, what did it stand for? Norman Nielsen Group, it's NNG. They have a ton of free resources for user research and user experience in general. And they do lots of how-tos and best ways and best practices. So lots of researchers, including myself, go there frequently to be like, I have this idea, and is this really like the best way to get it done? But they do lots of like teaching you how to do these things, like a toolkit of basic skills you need to know in order to become a UI designer. And then there's a ton of UX researchers who started as designers. Once you've been in UX for a little bit, you start to get a feel for what kinds of things are research questions and which ones are not. The danger, like I was talking about earlier there, is that if you don't have the foundational research or someone who can mentor you in UX research, you're likely to fall into some traps with research. But I guess as far as like transferring your skills, they're super transferable because you're speaking the same language already. Computer science, I think, is really popular degree for a lot of UI UX folks because it's a pretty easy transition, I think. I think the biggest kind of surprise for me, and I'm not sure because I've never done computer science as a degree, is kind of like in the design world, design thinking and the way that they work is a bit different than like academia or any other industry. And so I still think that's an on-the-job thing, honestly. So I would say work on just getting that first position in UI. And then once you do, or UX, once you do, it's pretty easy to move around. You'll see most designers that I know have worked in 3, 5, 7 different places, and not because their jobs were not stable or whatever. It was really just because they were like, I'm tired of thinking about healthcare and I want to start thinking about Google, or I want to start thinking about, I don't know, I have no idea, retail shopping. Or
again, it's the basis of research for sure. I mean, it's like
Right.
you believe that you satisfied whatever it was. Yeah, your curiosity. There you go. Definitely with that particular field, you wish to go and research other areas. Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. Definitely makes sense.
yeah, and I think as you are working on stuff like with your internship, start thinking about like, even if you don't go into research, even if you go into UI or UX, start thinking about like, what do I know now and what do I need to know in order to design the best thing, the best version of something? Because I think that that's the beginnings of research questions, UX research questions. Like, what do I know? What am I assuming? And what don't I know? And then there's things that you don't know, and those will come up later too. But really start thinking about like what assumptions you're making as you're building stuff, and start listing those out and asking those questions during your internship too. It will help you be a better researcher and a better designer.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Yeah,
It's
I hope
very
that's helpful.
insightful. There's a lot more than like I thought there was. So thank you.
Yeah, there's even sorry, this is not anything anybody asked, but I found out about this when I started this job, and I just think it's the coolest job. So there's a position called design ops, design operation. There's also research ops, but design ops and research ops, their whole job is to like make sure that the design team is efficient.
Okay.
So they like schedule all the meetings, they keep you on cadence, they like do all the different like tasks and move them around the Kanban board and like do research intake processes for you and all this stuff. But like their whole job is to like make sure that the team is efficient and organized. And so for somebody like me, that is awesome. I love that this position exists because I don't have to schedule meetings with everybody, you know, like that I need to talk to. It's on a regular cadence. Andy, my design ops guy, is going to schedule regular meetings for us, making sure that everybody's got the right communication, the right people are in the room,
Nice.
all these things. And so it's really cool. And so if you're somebody who likes to create organization like that and be like efficient, that's an awesome job. And you get to be around a lot of like creative people and like see cool stuff, but you also get to like build a good system. I just love a good system. Build a good system and make people do it.
Nice, definitely. So it's just like, go ahead. Yeah, no, setting it out, spacing it out.
Mhm.
That's nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Real briefly, or quickly, you did mention about, you know, the designers, the layout here and there. It kind of makes me wonder if, would it be, if not necessary, but definitely a plus on your side, if you happen to have somewhat of like a fine arts background, if you will, definitely working with the, again, with the design and whatnot.
Yeah, so I think that there's so many different kinds of things that are like cool assets to have as a designer.
Mhm.
So some of the designers I work with are super creative and like artsy, right? And so and have fine arts background. And so all of their stuff is beautiful
Okay,
all the time. Some of them have really more tech background. And so their stuff is really well functioning. Like they think through really well when they're designing something, like, can this even work?
Mhm.
Can this layout work? Or can this setup work? There are folks who are very like UX, like they started in UX, not just engineering or design. And so they're really good at like thinking about real world, like how these things work in the real world, and like what people need and what people want.
Okay.
There's all kinds of stuff. So fine arts, yes, there's lots of graphic designers, tons of graphic designers actually who become UX designers. Yes, to answer your question.
In short, yes.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Also, I believe, just as we continued, I believe it definitely, you start to bring in these different intelligences, if you will. Like, I mean, how one might be intelligent one way and one might be intelligent in another way. And just bringing these all together, I mean, makes a well-rounded answer, if you will, for the need that needs to be met.
Yeah, and if you're lucky, there's all different kinds of designers on your team or in your studio, so that like you can all kind of like play off each other and bounce that back and forth and be like, that's really pretty, but we need to think about X.
Right.
Or, you know, or the other way around, like nobody
It
wants.
functions, yeah, like
yeah.
it functions very well, yet is it aesthetically as pleasing?
Right,
Like,
does it look like Windows 97? In which case, nobody's gonna wanna use it, you know?
right,
And
right.
it conveys a sense of like confidence when it feels modern, feels.
Or comfortable too, because again, going back with that, I mean, no one really wants to talk about like health insurance and whatnot, but yes, no, making it as approachable as possible, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
Approachable, accessible.
yes.
Yeah.
Any last minute questions that we have from our online audience?
We currently don't.
Currently don't. All right, if we do happen to have any more questions, maybe comments or concerns, how can we reach you?
You can reach me, the best way is probably on LinkedIn, just because I'm in a situation right now where my Gmail inbox is absurd.
Oh,
I'm like
man.
embarrassed how bad it is.
No, I as well, and yeah,
Oh, the number of emails that are in there is bad. So like, don't expect an answer if you send me an email in Gmail. Oh, eventually I will answer, but like, but send me a message in LinkedIn and I'm happy to respond.
Wonderful.
Or just connect with me. I think it's never a bad idea to just have more folks in your Rolodex.
No, absolutely.
and of
No,
course,
the
like-
networking, the interactions, no, for sure.
Yeah, and of course,
Absolutely.
UHD and ATA in particular have my heart, so.
Yes, of course. Absolutely, absolutely. I see a pop-up right there in the little comment, in the little comments right here.
It's just a LinkedIn, but I was actually about to ask you if I could connect with you on LinkedIn, but you already answered that. So
I'm reading your mind. Right here. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Krysti Turnquest. It was truly an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Thank you all so much for joining us. If we are doing our ATA requirements, and please feel free to answer the survey as soon as possible. I do understand that our deadlines are quickly approaching. And if we so desire to review this video, it will be up on campus groups as soon as possible. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you once again. I really enjoy having your presence here, definitely.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
All right, that's all, folks.